My name is Janice Camp, and my piece is Site W, which is a multimedia piece in the show today. We're at the Cafe Allegro in the University District of Seattle, and Cafe Allegro is I think it's now the oldest coffee shop in the Seattle area. So this show is sponsored by the Physicians for Social Responsibility, and it's called Particles on the Wall.
And what is Particles on the Wall?
Particles on the Wall is an opportunity, I think, for artists to show or to try to communicate to people about scientific issues that may seem difficult or obscure or something they aren't really thinking about. But sometimes artists can communicate feelings or concerns or issues or concepts in a way that's more compelling than maybe just listening to a scientist talk. So this show is to figure out a way to communicate science in a new and interesting way. And it's about communicating science about nuclear power, nuclear weapons, and Hanford Reservation.
And you have a piece in the show?
I do. I have a piece called Site W. One of the things that really was compelling to me about the Hanford Reservation was that when the government first took over the area, they said that they took it over because there was nobody there, there was nothing there. And the more I learned about the site and what actually was there before it became a nuclear reservation was that there were a lot of people that lived there. There was well over 1,000 farmers and orchardists and landholders and businesses that actually had towns and lived in the Hanford area. And all those people were displaced. The government paid them for their property to take over their farms and that sort of thing, but some people dispute that the price they got was really a fair market value. And they really only had a few weeks to leave. So they were notified on one day, and 30 days later they had to be completely gone. And after that, their farms, their barns, their orchards, their crops, everything that they had worked on for nearly 100 years was destroyed. So it made me really sad, and so I did a piece to try to depict that loss of property and of memories and stories and families that occurred to build the nuclear power reservation.
Where does the name Site W come from?
Site W was the name given to the Washington site of all the various sites that the government was looking at. They were looking at a number of sites in Oregon, primarily in Oregon, California, and Washington. And the Washington site was codenamed Site W. So that's why I called it the piece Site W.
And have you ever been over to the Hanford?
Yes, I have. I grew up in Portland, so I've been to Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington a lot. But recently went over to the Hanford Reservation and did a tour of the reservation, particularly looking at the B reactor. So that was even more compelling to me. One of the elements of the old civilization that used to be there is still the Hanford High School. And that's one of the few buildings still remaining, because the government actually used it as an administration building during the time of building the Hanford Reservation. And so when we drove past that school, old school, it just was really compelling to me as a memory of the people who used to be there. So I tried to include that in my piece, the old high school.
You incorporated some of your visit over there into your piece.
Right, exactly. So I included a picture of the old high school, I painted a picture of the old high school, and I actually picked up some of the sand and dust from the reservation and applied that to the barn boards that are part of my piece. So I tried to make the piece look like you were looking through an old barn, that it was falling apart or being destroyed, and the particles from the sand and the ground that blew up during the windstorms were plated out on the walls of the old barn, and through the old barn you can see what's remaining of the high school building. And they also put a piece of the periodic chart there with indication of plutonium, where on the periodic chart plutonium is, because that's what people were trying to figure out, how to create plutonium for the bombs. I think that I would like people to think more about the human cost that people have had to bear when it comes to building nuclear bombs and nuclear power plants. Certainly the cost to the people of Japan is completely unmeasurable. It's just absolutely beyond measure, the kind of cost they had to bear. But the people of the United States also bear tremendous cost. Not only the people who were in the Hanford area that were displaced, but the people who were exposed to the fallout from emissions from the nuclear power plants when they were under operation, that lived downwind from the reservation. Those people continued to be impacted by the downsides of that. I think that there's some positive things that may come from nuclear power, but there are also a lot of costs. There's certainly the environmental costs, and with the continued waste. And the question is, how do we manage that? And I'm hoping that by having art pieces that people might be more compelled to look at than reading a scientific document, they might be interested in trying to learn more or do more about trying to understand and control nuclear power and nuclear waste.